Welcome to the Knowledge Seeker channel. This channel is dedicated to exploring critical issues in the world. This presentation is titled A Discourse on the Weaknesses, Limitations of Modern Science. The purpose of this presentation is to accomplish two goals. One, to explore the scientific methodology, and two, identify the weaknesses or limitations associated with the scientific method. In order to accomplish the goals of the presentation, the following arguments are made. 1. Comprehensive knowledge includes both physical, tangible, material, and immaterial, intangible, spiritual, mystical components or characteristics or qualities. 2. Science concentrates on the study of physical, tangible, material components or characteristics of nature. 3. Since science has only discovered or deciphered about 20 to 25% of existing knowledge, it cannot be the only methodology to study and comprehend nature and the universe. 4. Science has numerous weaknesses or limitations. 5th, the component of science that is closest to mystical, spiritual knowledge is quantum physics. And 6th, eventually, science will catch up with immaterial, mystical, and spiritual knowledge in the future. Now, let's look at comprehensive knowledge. A comprehensive or a complete knowledge about any phenomenon must include both the physical, tangible, material, and the intangible, immaterial, mystical, spiritual qualities of the object being studied. Generally, the physical, tangible, material component of knowledge includes mostly information gathered through the five senses. The five senses are hearing, sight, touch, smell, and taste. The intangible, immaterial, spiritual, mystical quality of knowledge is the sixth sense. Some people refer to the sixth sense as the universal consciousness that radiates around the world and enables humans and other animals to have intuition or psychic ability to perceive the physically invisible aspects of reality. This component of knowledge comes under the immaterial, spiritual, mystical methodology. The immaterial, spiritual, mystical methodology involves the application of the five senses as well as the following, which make up the sixth sense. A. Developing alternate states of consciousness. B. Using divination in attaining insights into ultimate or hidden truths. C. Using powers embedded in parapsychology such as extrasensory perception in identifying hidden information. D. The use of telepathy, clairvoyance, teleportation, and levitation. E. Using special herbs and herbal concoctions to connect to other spheres and beings. And F. the ability to use the Akashic record of the universe. Thus, thought, the Egyptian god of knowledge, refers to this as the magical science. Science or physical science concentrates on the acquisition and dissemination of knowledge based on the studying, observing, experimenting, and applying of information gathered through the five senses. Immaterial, spiritual, mystical knowledge is based on the studying, observing, and applying of information gathered through the six senses, including hearing, sight, touch, taste, smell, and intuition, spirituality, paranormal psychology, and/or psychic consciousness, as indicated above. There was a time in the universe when every society in Africa, Asia, Australia, the Americas, and Europe relied on studying, observing, and applying knowledge based on information gathered through the six senses rather than five. However, the emergence of reason, modern science, and secular humanism following the European Renaissance in the Middle Ages, especially in the 16th century, in Europe dramatically changed the European perception of knowledge. Instead of acquiring knowledge based on studying, observing, experimenting, and applying information based on the utilization of the six senses, the effort was reduced to the five physical senses. This means that due to the influence of modern science, the sixth sense was eliminated since materiality and factuality are the cardinal basis of scientific objectivity due to reliance on reason and logic. Thus, any phenomenon or variable or thing that cannot be perceived through the five senses that is not subject to quantification, categorization, and measurement is considered scientifically untenable. Now, what is science or modern science? Science can be defined as the study of the structure, characteristics, and behavior of the physical, natural, and social world through systematic investigation, observation, and experimentation. Thus, scientific knowledge can only be acquired through systematic gathering, classification, and interpretation of data that have been carefully investigated, observed, and experimented upon. The process includes making observations, forming logical hypotheses, and testing them. The implication is that any knowledge gained without the rigorous application of systematic investigation, observation, and experimentation will not qualify as scientific knowledge. Scientists tend to characterize such knowledge as a myth or legend or folktale. This is symbols in science. Now, let's look at the different types of sciences. One, we have natural sciences. This includes physics, chemistry, biology, and earth science. 2. Formal sciences includes mathematics, logic, and computer. 3. Social sciences include anthropology, archaeology, psychology, sociology, political science, and economics. 4. Applied sciences include engineering and medicine. Note, each of these branches has many subfields. Likewise, each subject has many subfields or branches of specialization. The scientific model involves a process. So let's look at the process. 1. Asking questions or questions. 2. Developing hypotheses and theories. 3. Conducting experiments. 4. Making observations. 5. Conducting analysis. 6. Drawing conclusions. 7. If necessary, asking more questions again and repeat the process. 8. It is based on evidence. This is another way to look at it. Now, let's look at the rules or considerations for the scientific process. 1. It is based on the work of others. The process of uncovering information is an ongoing effort and is done incrementally, with one study starting from where a previous study had stopped and continuing the investigation. 2. In science, replication is one of the essential requirements so that predictability can be established. 3. It is generalizable to other settings. To ensure generalizability, it is essential that samples used represent the populations so that conclusions drawn can be generalized. That is very important in scientific method. If the samples used do not represent the populations being studied, then the issues of reliability and validity will occur. 4. It is based on some logical rationale and tied to theory. This means that scientific study requires a step-by-step process using logical reasoning to advance from one stage to another in order to test data and determine the results of a theory or hypothesis. It is doable. To ensure scientific relevance, it is necessary to make sure that topics chosen for investigation are specific with measurable variables to show correlation or relationships. Now, let's see how the scientific method or modern science has come to dominate the world concerning knowledge about any phenomenon. So in today's world, any fact that is not verifiable through science is considered not to be a fact. So let's see how that happened. Science is like an organized religion such as Christianity and Islam. The reason is that these religions do not tolerate any other point of view. Christians emphatically declare that the only path to God is through Christianity. Muslims insist unequivocally that The only way to seek Allah is through Islam. Due to the uncompromising view of the road to God, both religions refer to non-believers as infidels. Scientists, like Christians and Muslims, insist that the only way to study and understand nature and the universe is through science. Any knowledge that does not pass through the test of science is viewed as being unscientific and does not exist because it cannot be explained logically using reason. Thus, reason becomes the litmus test for determining whether any explanation about any phenomenon makes scientific sense. If the explanation cannot be logically explained, then the explanation is scientifically unacceptable, even if it is a fact. Like the early exponents of Christianity and Islam, during the formative years of the two religions, the early exponents of modern science insisted during the formative years of the scientific movement that reason is the most suitable means of studying and advancing knowledge and not through faith. They criticize ancient, classical, and Christian scholars and intellectuals for attempting to advance knowledge through faith based on information gathered from the Bible and other philosophical orientations or positions. Thus, the early scientists rejected faith and insisted on reason as the basis for understanding the universe. There, particularly Francis Bacon and René Descartes argues, and I quote, that reason, especially scientific reason, guided by certain rules or methods, could check human errors and dogmas and result in greater understanding, and I unquote. The scientists campaign unapologetically against using religious knowledge as the basis for understanding the workings of the universe. And let's look at some of them. 1. Nicholas Copernicus questioned the Christian belief that the earth was at the center of the universe. 2. Francis Bacon, a philosopher and scientist, viewed religion as the superstition of the mind. 3. He questioned the idea of the world being governed by final causes or telos. He believed that God is unnecessary to explain nature or man. 4. René Descartes, a philosopher, scientist, and mathematician, questioned the idea of God and religion being at the center of knowledge and the universe. 5. Isaac Newton, a mathematician and physicist, viewed the world as being driven by mechanical forces guided by laws of motion. He developed the laws of motion. 6. He viewed God as an architect, a mathematician, or a great watchmaker. He further believed that the natural laws of the universe are not moral, but mathematical. Thomas Hobbes, a philosopher, reduced every component of nature to their physical forms that can be studied scientifically. He regarded all life as matter, in motion. Thus, the scientists posited that reason, guided by proper rules, would result in the elimination of false truths, dogmas, prejudices, and stereotypes that inhibit human understanding. They emphasize the importance of applying reason as the basis for even justifying political authority. Scientific discoveries by Galileo, Copernicus, and others enabled the scientific point of view to prevail, thereby pushing back the religious view of nature and the universe. The emphatic focus on matter, that is, the physical tangible quality, as the basis for studying and comprehending nature and the universe, resulted in the breakup of comprehensive knowledge, which involves both physical, material, and immaterial, mystical, spiritual qualities. Here, reason represents Mara and the physical quality of nature, and faith represents immaterial, mystical, spiritual quality of nature. In Africa, Asia, Native America, and Native Australia, knowledge involves both physical and spiritual, or tangible and intangible, or reason and faith combinations or components. In these parts of the world, there can be no reason without faith, and there can be no faith without reason, since both have a symbiotic relationship. Hence, the Chinese use the term yin-yang to express the duality of nature. However, modern science as configured in Europe eliminated the faith or intangible quality of nature and focused entirely on the reason aspect of nature. Western Europeans spread the scientific methodology throughout the world after colonizing the Americas, Africa, some parts of Asia, and the Pacific regions, including Australia. Like Christians, Western educators and scientists succeeded in establishing the belief that science is the only true path to understanding nature and the universe. This is why all over the world today, the scientific point of view that any phenomenon that is not subject to physical analysis through observation, experimentation, and testing cannot be considered natural is accepted without question. Now, let's look at the power of scientific authority in the world today. Because every concept of knowledge today must pass through the scientific test. Like religion, every societal activity must be determined to be either true or false based on scientific testing today. And there are many ways to look at it. A, when a person dies, the cause of death must be determined by a scientist, that is, a medical doctor or a coroner. B, if there is an outbreak of a disease, society must wait until scientists announce what it is and determine the treatment method. C, human and animal behavior must be studied and categorized by the scientific method, that is, using psychology. D, to know the curative powers of plants, animal parts, and so forth, only scientists can make definitive statements about their efficacy. E, to build any structure, permission must be obtained from an expert who is a scientist, that is, an engineer. F. To study and understand the past. Only recommendations of scientists, that is, archaeologists, anthropologists, geologists, and so forth, must be accepted. Thus, science and scientists dominate human thinking today. Even though modern science has contributed immensely to the advancement of knowledge and the enhancement of the quality of life, it has several weaknesses or limitations or drawbacks. The weaknesses or limitations limit the effectiveness of the scientific method in many ways. Quite often, scientists do not publicly acknowledge the fact that the scientific method has limitations, which makes it ineffective in studying the immaterial, intangible qualities of nature and the universe, possibly. This is why scientists have tried but failed to explain convincingly some of the structures and phenomena that exist in the world. The list below identifies some of the weaknesses or limitations. List of the weaknesses and or limitations of science. 1. Nature and the universe are characterized by both physical, material, and non-physical, immaterial qualities. Yet science only focuses on the physical, material, or tangible quality of nature. This is a major flaw in scientific methodology. 2. Science is unable to decipher knowledge that originates from immaterial, intangible, mystical, spiritual sources. 3. Since science is mostly effective in studying and understanding the physical quality of nature, scientists tend to overgeneralize the findings of their scientific studies. They generalize their findings by applying the results to the entirety of nature, even though they only study the physical, material aspect of nature without delving into the immaterial or intangible quality. It is argued here that a scientific finding can only be applied generally when the variables analyzed include both the physical and immaterial, intangible characteristics. 4. Due to undue emphasis on physical characteristics, there is a tendency toward standardization, quantification, and measurement. The weaknesses of standardization and measurement is that nature and the universe are too complex to be put in quantifiable and measurable boxes. 5. Nature is characterized by diversity and not by standardization. For instance, people and other animals come in all sizes, from different physical environments with different cultures, and eat different foods from different environments. Likewise, not every phenomenon in nature and the universe are subject to quantification and physical measurement. Yet, science always wants to standardize and measure. 6. There are limitations to observation and experimentation. A. The weakness of observation is that it is in the eyes of the observer. 2 or 3 people can observe the same phenomenon and come up with different results. Quite often, results deduced from observation are based on perception of the observer. Thus, observation is not an exact science. B. Scientists use experimentation to attempt to replicate natural situations and/or occurrences. The truth is that no amount of controlled experimentation can replicate the intrinsic and complex forces of nature and the universe. This is why many scientific experiments provide contradictory findings. 7. Science suffers from the guru syndrome. Like religion, some scientists are treated like prophets and geniuses for their scientific theories, models, and systems. As a result, every scientific subfield has a guru whose theories or models or systems must be imbibed by students. No scientist dares to challenge an individual who has been ordained or sainted as a guru in any scientific field. Anyone who challenges a guru is viewed as a troublemaker or a rebel. 8. Science is very ideological and expects all scientists to believe and follow the same path. Hence, any scientist who goes outside the scientific box is viewed as a pseudoscientist or a quack. And there are many examples to cite from. A. This is why almost all medical doctors must follow the stipulated scientific beliefs, theories, procedures, and practices. B. Any scientist who deviates from the established viewpoint is likely to face professional challenges for not towing the prescribed views. Indeed, some scientists lost their occupational positions for saying things or engaging in practices that is contrary to the prescribed processes or procedures. C. Due to the ideological nature of the scientific belief system, it is those scientists who are castigated or condemned for being unscientific in their views that often create new technologies, treatment methods, and solve thorny problems in society. There are many names to cite from, but a few will do here. Sigmund Freud psychoanalytic theories were challenged or castigated for being unscientific by the scientific mainstream, yet his theories have become major parts of psychology today. Dr. Barry James Marshall and Dr. Robin Warren got out of the existing scientific thought and argued that the bacterium Helicobacter pylori was greatly responsible for causing peptic ulcers. To convince the scientific medical world, Dr. Marshall experimented on himself to show that the H. pylori was responsible for causing ulcers. The discovery destroyed the belief that stress was responsible for causing ulcers. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity was initially viewed with doubt, hence regarded as unscientific because of the concepts he enunciated. His concepts of time and space, wormholes, different dimensions sounded to the orthodox or traditional scientists as bordering on mysticism rather than science. Today, he is treated as a genius. Nikola Tesla, an inventor and electrical engineer who discovered the magnetic field, the electronic power transmission system, and induction coil that is used in radio technology, a teleautomatic boat operated by remote control, terrestrial stationary waves, and lit lamps without wires. He went as far as to claim that he had received signals from another planet. Many orthodox or traditional scientists question his scientific credentials because he thought outside the scientific box. Today, he is much appreciated for his creative and innovative works or ideas. This is Dr. Sigmund Freud, Dr. Barry Marshall, Albert Einstein, and Nikola Tesla. 9. Science is a money-intensive methodology. No scientific experiment or study can be done without money. Similarly, no scientific or technological product can be developed or designed without sufficient financial investment. And there are many ways to look at it. Therefore, science is a big business that generates trillions of dollars annually in every aspect of scientific endeavor. B, as a result, scientists look for financial sponsors to support them in carrying out research, experiments, and developing new products. 10. Science is increasingly subjective and not objective. The early modern scientists argued in support of scientific methodology as the most objective way of understanding nature and the universe due to its focus on reason based on logic. Well, there is no such thing as scientific objectivity. Why? The fact that scientists opt for reason and reject faith as the basis of comprehending nature shows a preference, thereby minimizing objectivity. It is necessary to know the objective and subjective state of nature in order to develop a complete knowledge of any phenomenon. B. Science is money intensive and compromises its objectivity. See, quite often, those who sponsor scientific research studies tend to influence the outcomes of such projects. And there are many examples to cite from. 1. Scientists who work for tobacco companies are likely to infer or conclude that tobacco products are not harmful to human beings. 2. Scientists who work for food manufacturing companies are likely to say that their products are not harmful even if the products contain harmful biochemical compounds. 3. Scientists who are sponsored by government agencies are likely to draw conclusions that support the views of the government. Why so? And why? Because scientists do not want to destroy the sources of their financial sponsorship and careers. D. Objectivity is sacrificed when scientists are encouraged to concentrate their research or experiments on subjects or issues that are amenable to quantification, measurement, and physical observation. This discourages scientists from engaging in studies that deal with the immaterial, intangible qualities of nature and the universe. 10. Due to the emphasis on objectivity, science is devoid of making value judgments. Hence, it can be used to do good as well as commit evil. it can be manipulated to achieve any goal. 11. Modern science, which concentrates on the study of physical phenomena, is only about 700 years old, starting from the Middle Ages. This means that it is relatively a new methodology and has no explanation for so many things in the world. 12. The claim that science is the only true path in studying and comprehending nature and the universe is an exaggeration. How can it be the only source for determining the knowledge of nature and the universe when human beings have existed for hundreds of thousands of years? 13. Reason and logic. While scientists postulate that every phenomenon or variable or event in the universe can be explained using reason and logic, it is the case that nature does not necessarily operate based on reason and logic. There are many examples to cite from, but a few will do here. A. Luck or fortune does not operate based on reason and logic. It is part of nature that luck or fortune can intercede in human affairs and cause a chain reaction. Hence, a poor individual can suddenly win a lottery to become rich instantly. B. An able-bodied individual can get involved in a ghastly accident and become disabled instantly. C. Native American shamans in the Peruvian region use ayahuasca concoction to contact other beings and get to a higher plane of consciousness. D. Reason and logic cannot explain near-death experience, whereby some people die while in the hospital and return to life to explain their experiences about a non-physical world that science is not familiar with. This is why medical scientists have not been able to scientifically explain NDE. Most doctors are afraid to speak about NDE for fear of being castigated for believing in it. 14. Science and genetically modified organism. GMOs are basically organisms in which their DNAs have been modified through laboratory experimentation. While GMOs have resulted in mass production of food to feed billions of people in the world, it is increasingly a source of many complicated medical maladies. To avoid being afflicted with one of the complicated medical maladies, people are being advised to eat organic food and avoid scientifically produced GMO foods. 15. Mass-produced processed foods. Due to scientific innovation, mass-scale industrial production of food is now possible. As a result, millions, if not billions of people are able to eat without necessarily farming to do so. The drawback to the mass-scale production of food is that all kinds of chemicals are added to boost the quantity, freshen the quality, and make them durable, and beautify the products to make them attractive. The additives are contributing to diabetes, all kinds of cancers, liver and kidney problems, and other complicated diseases. 16. Scientific drugs. Scientific drugs have contributed to advancement of medical science and the enhancement of the quality of life in the world. Science has made people live longer, no doubt about it. However, the drawback to scientific medicine is that the drugs have devastating side effects on millions of people in the world. And there are many examples. A. Prescription drugs contribute to drug addiction. B. Many drugs are produced to solve specific health problems, but the human body operates as a total system. As a result, a particular drug may cure a particular medical condition and contribute to other medical problems. Some of the drugs cause liver and kidney problems. 17. Due to excessive reliance on physical knowledge of nature, while nature has both physical and immaterial mental, spiritual qualities, science provides contradictory and confusing information about what is good for health. And there are many examples to cite from. A. Some scientific studies indicate that coffee, red meat, egg, fat, and so forth are good for health. B. Other scientific studies indicate that coffee, red meat, egg, fat, and so forth are not good for health. C. Science tries to globalize the Mediterranean diet as the best foods for good health. This is undue generalization. Why? Contrary to the scientific view of the best foods for human health, nature conditions people and other living organisms to eat foods that exist in their physical environments. This means that there is no single best diet for good health in the world. Nature also conditions human beings and other living organisms to adjust and be able to consume foods that are available in their environments. Therefore, it is a stretch of the scientific imagination to suggest a Mediterranean diet to someone who lives in the tropics or the Arctic regions of the world. 18. To claim the superiority of the scientific method, scientists try to undervalue ancient knowledge of nature and the universe by referring to them as legends, tales, mythologies, folklores, and so forth. However, increasingly, many of the so-called myths, legends, tales, and so forth are being corroborated to be factual accounts of events or things that took place in the past. 19. Many recent scientific discoveries are simply a repetition of technologies that have existed in the past. The Mahabharata describes military weapons that are akin to modern telecommunication and surveillance technologies, and rockets, lasers, and possibly nuclear bombs. Third, stated in the Emerald Tablet that he flew to ancient Egypt in a spacecraft from Atlantis and used an instrument that looked like a laser beam to stop the Egyptians who threatened him. 20. Science has conflicting theories that create confusion. It is recently that The general theory of relativity, which focuses on macro forces that have been partially reconciled with quantum physics, which focuses on micro forces. Just recently, 21. Quantum physics. While orthodox scientists tend to be dismissive of knowledge of nature and the universe gained through immaterial, spiritual, mystical studies, quantum physics is incrementally proving such knowledge to be factual. For instance, concepts such as portals, different dimensions, quantum teleportation, quantum entanglements, quantum gravity, dark matter, electromagnetic fields, and so forth are simply a replication of knowledge that already exists in Africa, India, Tibet, China, Native America, and Native Australia through spiritual, mystical studies of nature and the universe. This is why some shamans, spiritualists, herbalists, traditional religious priests, and priestesses in Africa, Asia, Native America, Haiti, and Native Australia can engage in time travel, get from point A to point B without flying by plane, can transform into other creatures, can develop the third eye, and see into the past and the future. Hence, in Africa, no secret that cannot be deciphered through divination and oracular consultation. Apparently, quantum physics is the scientific branch that is gradually bridging the gap between physical science and spirituality mysticism. Let's look at existing knowledge that science cannot explain in the world. Although science has dominated the human ability to decipher knowledge to the point where any phenomenon that cannot meet the test of science is considered non-existent because it is scientifically unprovable. The problem is that the scientific method is limited only to the physical material field of knowledge. In this section, structures and phenomena that exist in the world that science has not been able to explain convincingly are identified. 1. Stone circles. There are stone circles in England, Scotland, France, Ireland, and so forth. Some of the stones, like the ones in Stonehenge in England, weigh tons that even modern machines would have to struggle with to carry them. Science has not been able to explain the structure. 2. Stone spheres. Huge rounded stones that weigh even up to 15 tons or more are found in Costa Rica. In fact, about 300,000 spheres have been discovered so far. The materials for constructing these stones were obtained from distant locations in the country. In Bosnia, there are 6 stone spheres. In particular, a 37-ton stone sphere, which is probably the largest in the world, was discovered. The stones are 96% perfect. The stones cannot be scientifically dated, but they are believed to have been 100,000 years old. Scientists cannot identify the means these spheres were created or developed. Likewise, they are unable to explain the purpose of the spheres. Most of the stones contain quartz. B. There are also stone spheres in Mexico. In 2013, scientists discovered stone spheres under the temple of the feathered serpent. They also found mercury, also in the temple. Scientists speculate that they might have been used as energy generating devices, but they are not sure. Why should science be the only acceptable methodology to study and determine knowledge of nature when scientists have no clue about the stone circles and stone spheres? 3. The pyramids found in Egypt, Mexico, Guatemala, Peru, China, and so forth. Scientists have attempted severally to explain how they were built without succeeding. In particular, their attempt to explain by saying that thousands of people were deployed in several years to build them has not been convincing. Likewise, their attempt to explain the purposes of the pyramids too have not been convincing. This means that the pyramids are beyond scientific explanation, even though they are physical objects. Third, the Egyptian god of knowledge, technology, wisdom, and magical science stated in the Emerald Tablet that he built the Great Pyramid. This means that the pyramid is over 20,000 years old. 6. The Havana Syndrome. In 2016, members of the US Embassy staff woke up to hear a high-frequency noise that is considered a sonic weapon. Scientists have not been able to determine the cause of the syndrome, despite all effort so far. 7. UFOs or USOs. All over the world, going back to ancient times, humans have reported having contact with aliens or extraterrestrial beings that dwell in the atmosphere, on Earth, and in the seas or water. They have also claimed that most of the existing knowledge, especially wisdom, technology, and magical sciences, originated from aliens or extraterrestrial beings. The Sumerians, Chinese, Native Americans, Native Australians, Africans, Japanese, and so forth do not shy away from claiming visitation and contact with these beings, even though in the West it is denied. Scientists disagree because the scientific method is ineffective in dealing with beings that operate at a very high level of consciousness. Now, let's look at SETI. Even the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, which is known as SETI, seems technologically crude to be able to detect beings that operate at a very advanced technological level where they can appear and disappear at will. These beings can turn into humans and other creatures at will. On the other hand, shamans, spiritualists, and traditional religious priests in Africa, Native America, and Asia, that is in India, China, Tibet, are able to have contact with these beings because they operate at a mystical spiritual level, which is far more advanced than the physical level of knowledge that science espouses. In Africa, some men and women are married to alien beings, especially Mami Water that dwelt in the water even today. Likewise, in Africa, many individuals who have been abducted by alien beings develop miraculous powers after having lived with such beings in their world before coming back to Earth. Thus, many shamans, native doctors, herbalists, religious priests and priestesses, psychics, and spiritualists in Africa develop third eyes and are capable of interacting with other beings on regular basis, thereby defying logic. I might say the same thing happens in India, in Tibet, in China, in Peru, in Ecuador. Now, let's look at the soul, human soul. It is strongly believed in many parts of the world that human beings and other animals have souls. Thus, when a person dies, the physical body decays while the spiritual part of the body, which is the soul, never dies. Instead, it leaves the body and moves to a different dimension of the universe. The soul is like the individualized part of the universal consciousness. Scientists disagree because the concept of the soul is not amenable to physical detection as the scientific methodology demands. However, Africans, Native Americans, Australian Aborigines, and Asians are able to detect and even communicate with deceased members of society through divination and oracular consultation. While scientists disagree about the concept of the soul, individuals who have experienced near-death experience confirm the existence of the soul. They speak about their soul leaving their physical bodies while they are about to die in the hospital. Although science does not allow scientists to accept the view, nevertheless, medical doctors and nurses who work in situations where individuals pass away temporarily can confirm stories told by those who experience the NDE. In the West, anyone who claims to have encountered an alien being or a soul would be considered to suffer from hallucination because science cannot explain such concepts. Divination. Establishing contact or finding information through the application of mystical spiritual means has been part of the human experience for thousands of years. In Africa, there are no secrets that cannot be discovered through divination. Information about the past, the present, and future can be discovered through divination or oracular consultation with ancestral beings, gods, goddesses, spirits, dwarfs, angels, and jinns. Hence, the Dogon people discovered the Dogon star without even modern technology. Among the Ijaws of the Niger Delta, divination is used to find out the cause of death, paternity of a child, the outcome of a war, the goodness or badness of a person, and so forth. Anything that science cannot detect can be uncovered through divination. For instance, if an individual is killed and the police cannot identify the culprit after investigation due to lack of physical or strong circumstantial evidence, through divination, the culprit can be identified and punished. Thus, in Africa, there is no such thing as a cold case, except the family and the community do not wish to pursue the matter. The Ijaws of the Niger Delta refer to the need to determine the absolute truth of any event or thing through divination as ye be. Ye be literally means to seek the truth through asking a higher authority. It is going beyond the physical realm to get information. This is the image of Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge, wisdom, moon, science, technology, writing, geometry, and astronomy. So let's look at the magical science of Thoth. Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge, science, technology, moon, wisdom, technology, writing, and medicine, also known as Hermes in Greek and Mercury in Rome, in the Emerald tablet used the term magical science rather than science. Thus, Thoth's magical science refers to a combination of both physical, material, and immaterial mystical spiritual knowledge of nature and the universe. The Thotian view is compatible with the Sumerian and African view of science. As a result, the African view of science contains both physical and spiritual mystical knowledge of reality. This is why Africans rely on physical and immaterial mystical methodologies to study nature and the universe. The same goes with the Indians, Tibetans, and Native Americans. The African approach is a continuation of the Sumerian and Thotian approach. Hence, Africans believe that the world you do not see with your physical eyes is greater than the world you see with your physical eyes. The lesson is that it is necessary to go beyond physical science in order to have a comprehensive understanding of nature and the universe. Now, let's look at the ancient alien astronaut theory. Perhaps due to the realization that science is not equipped to satisfactorily explain some of the existing knowledge in the world, a group of scientists and scholars decided to establish the ancient alien astronaut theory to fill the missing gaps in scientific knowledge. Thus, the ancient alien astronaut theory attempts to solidify the view that knowledge of the universe can be obtained through scientific and other methodologies. This effort reinforces Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, which deals with abstract concepts in quantum physics that seem to correlate with the immaterial, spiritual, mystical knowledge of the universe. In conclusion, the following observations are made. 1. Indeed, comprehensive knowledge about nature and the universe requires the study and understanding of both physical, tangible, and immaterial, intangible qualities of nature and the universe. This means that it is necessary to combine reason and faith since both are symbiotic. 2. Science concentrates on deciphering physical or tangible components of knowledge of nature and ignores the intangible, immaterial part. Hence, science does not deal with the why equation, and neither is it able to deal with non-physical phenomena such as aliens or extraterrestrial beings, souls, and near-death experiences. 3. The scientific methodology is used to determine what constitutes the factuality of knowledge when it is only about 700 years old in a world that has lasted for hundreds of thousands of years. Fourth, the component of science that is closest to immaterial, mystical, spiritual knowledge is quantum physics. 5. Eventually, science will catch up with mystical, spiritual knowledge as quantum physicists work hard to bridge the gap between the two by studying and experimenting with concepts such as different dimensions of the universe, wormholes, quantum teleportation, quantum entanglement, portals, telepathy, and electromagnetism. When the two meet, then comprehensive knowledge of the universe will take place, thereby fulfilling the magical science of Thoth, the Egyptian god of knowledge, wisdom, writing, science, magic, moon, and medicine. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Please subscribe to the channel and listen to other interesting presentations. Again, thank you.